What's going on, everyone? I'm your host, Christian Black,
And I'm your co-host, Matthew Gorichkovsky.
and welcome to Season 2 of Our Small Majority, featuring artists, historians, activists, and entertainers alike.
Before we get started, don't forget to follow us on whatever listening platform you're listening to right now so you can always be notified whenever new episodes are released.
Also, we'd love it if you could leave us a review. Are you enjoying the show? We want to hear from you.
Today, we're joined by Andre Key, a video game scout for NBA 2K.
Wait, a video game scout? A video game scout or a boy scout?
No, a video game scout.
Wait. Okay, so I've heard of scouts for like the NFL, the NBA, but what's a video game scout?
I don't know. That's why he's gonna tell us.
But for real though, what does this man do?
Shh, it's starting. We're about to find out.
Believe it or not, players already know the plays that teams run,
Mhm.
right? So what it comes down to is execution.
Right.
Once in
Right.
a while, you may get a play that surprises a team because they may be expecting something else. So they have something called counters,
Mhm.
where you can run a certain thing a certain way, and then you turn around and flip it, and you run it on the reverse side. It's like
Right.
turning over a pancake.
Huh.
So you're expecting something to happen on this side, and then it happens on the other side. And now I have to scramble to try to get to you and stop you.
Right.
So you'll see things like that happen. Among all the other things that running around, right? But that's not really what it is. All the actions that they perform are actually on purpose.
Mhm. Wow. So I would imagine that there's even a whole separate team when developing video games just to research different plays that's done either recently, like in that year, or even in the past too.
That's me. That's all me.
That's all you, right
That's all
there.
me. Yes. So you can imagine how much video I watch, you
Mhm.
know, at a given time. You can tell certain things as run for a particular player. So,
Mhm.
if you want to know the type of things the Lakers do for LeBron James, you can actually look on the game and see what they do in real life. You can see
Mhm.
what they run for LeBron in real life, and a team could take that. They already have guys to watch and scout and
Mhm.
give player reports and stuff, but you can actually see the same thing in the game.
Wow. So, well, what would you say is the oldest footage you've ever watched in order to do something inside of your fields? What year would that be?
Oh boy, the oldest footage, probably somewhere. They have some pretty old teams in the game,
Mhm.
right? As far
Mhm.
back as Jerry West, George Mikan, back in the '60s. So it would be
Mhm.
something like that.
Right, right. And did you have to like research a lot of that footage, or was it more like, okay, what happened this year, and that's what we're about to include inside of the game?
So that's only for the current teams.
Mhm.
Of course, the older teams are no longer playing, so whatever they did at that time, players
Right.
in the '90s, it's already cemented. So that stuff won't change. But every year,
Mhm.
a coach may put something new in his
Mhm.
strategy. So we have to watch to find out to see what they do.
Right. 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 So it really is just a game of keeping updated, and you it's sort of your job to watch basketball games, and it really is. Well, ever since COVID happened, how did that affect you? Because once COVID happened, we couldn't gather
Right.
and have any more games. So has there been like a split when it comes to your research?
Uh, well, I had enough games to watch because I believe it the game stopped somewhere in the beginning of March.
Hmm.
So, I had games from October until March to look at, and gather data from. So I
Mm.
was still busy. Plus
Hmm.
there are other things. The game has a ton of classic teams, which is older teams. Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Patrick Ewing, all of the old Knicks teams. I had to, look over all those things as well, and then you have to include the WNBA. So I have to look
Hmm.
over those things
Hmm.
too.
Right. Dang, that sounds like a lot.
Yeah,
So
it
on
is.
average, yeah. So on average, when you say, okay, we have a finished project here, my job is done, things like that, because you said it could take hours and hours on end.
Right.
How long would it take for you to be completely done? Like, do you do each team individually, or do you split it up with other people? Like, okay, you take these teams, you take three teams, or do they just all give you all of them?
No, I started off that way. It
Uh-huh.
was me and another guy, and I think I took about half the league, which was about 15 teams.
Mm-hmm.
But the very next year, I inherited the entire thing.
Oh wow.
So, from that point, I kind of got my feet wet, and
Mm-hmm.
then I just had to work. I really
Right.
just had to work. So I just put my head down and just worked. And it is a lot, but if it's something that you love, it doesn't really feel like a burden, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like it's daunting. You're staring at a screen for a long time. It kind of drains you mentally. You have to try to figure out what they're doing because it's real strategy. It's not. It's like watching math, geometry, or whatever the case may be. Because of the angles that they take, and it's a lot of things you have to watch. So, it that's why it takes hours. I may have to watch 3 or 4 or 5 games for one team, to get a few plays because they may run the same play over and over again, through the course of a game. If I have to grab 50 plays, that's going to take a while.
Right. Man, well, with all this knowledge and things like that, going more on a social level, in your opinion, why do you think not only just basketball, but sports in general is such a huge, huge influencer inside of our daily life, whether it comes to like consumption for products and shoes and things like that, and even right now with when it comes to protesting and kneeling. Why do you think that has always been a huge, huge component of our culture?
Personally, I feel like sports has the audience for it.
Hmm.
It's become more popular over the years, and it just has a lot of eyes on it. And I think I think COVID kind of exposed how much sports consumes people's time, uh,
Hmm.
day to day or throughout the year. When there was no sports, then you saw how much people actually watch TV because of sports.
Hmm.
So they get a lot of screen time, a lot of face time,
Hmm.
and that platform is really huge. So I think that played a part in you being able to hear from athletes a lot more than in the past.
Right.
Well, why do you think it's so important? Is it just entertainment, or is there more to it than that?
It's definitely entertainment, but I don't know if you guys remember, and I probably dated myself a little bit, but in the mid '90s, Charles Barkley did a commercial, a Nike commercial, and the theme of the commercial, as his words would say, is "I'm not a role model."
Mm-hmm.
Your parents should be a role model. He went on this spiel, so that may have been true at a time. Uh, But like I said, once sports became more popular, once they started making more money, the responsibility that comes along with that started to change. They became a brand, and all of these companies and corporations, they started sending out messages and whatnot because eyes were on them. They didn't want to make a mistake. They didn't want to lose customers, so they started paying attention to the things they were saying. So it's the same thing for them. Uh, I think it's important because they have a lot of people watching, a lot of kids, and a lot of kids look up to them. So
Hmm.
they have to have some type of message. This is a time now where you can't just be silent, not saying anything because that's kind of deciding.
Hmm.
Hmm. Hmm. Whether you decide to take that responsibility or not, it's on you. So
Oh,
the only
yes,
really decision you have is what you do with it, I guess.
I would say it does matter what you do.
Hmm.
Everyone is not as vocal as the next person. Some people decide to donate their money or their time or whatever the case may be. Whatever ways they can contribute, they do it. But
Hmm.
there are some that actually they have to have something to say.
Right.
It's not new. If you remember Kareem, Muhammad Ali, Bill Russell, those guys fought for civil rights.
Hmm.
It's just on a larger scale now than it was back then.
right. Probably with the help of social media and everything, and how everything is at a push of a button.
Right.
Everybody knows.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I guess another question for you is, if social media existed way back then, like how you mentioned Muhammad Ali, since that was already huge to begin with during the civil rights movement. If we had Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all of that, do you think that that movement would have been more successful and more impactful with the use of social media?
I think that, whatever happened as a result of that movement, it would have happened faster. And
Hmm.
I'm just saying that uh, by the effects of social media.
Right.
I just think it would have happened faster. Some things were taboo back then that aren't now.
Hmm.
Colin Kaepernick, he pretty much was blackballed from the NFL for kneeling. And they
Hmm.
felt like it was a problem. There was an NBA player named Chris Jackson. He played in college with Shaq.
Hmm.
Changed his name to Mahmoud Abdul Rauf, and he became a Muslim. And during the national anthem one time, he decided, he would pray at that time,
Mm.
and that was a big problem for the league. Eventually he was if I could compare him to anyone, I would say he was Steph Curry. At
R-
that time,
At
so he
that
was that
time.
good. He was that good. So eventually they pushed him out of the league. Actually, it didn't take very long. He never got back in. Now that would never happen today,
Hmm.
not in the NBA. But at that time, it was more taboo. So, he was kind of fried for what he wanted to do.
Right, right. Well, now that you mention that, because I didn't even know that one, what are some other examples? Could you think of other examples that, like, during a national anthem or like a huge thing in order to represent nationalism, someone did something during a sporting event that was out of the ordinary?
It hasn't really been much. That's why you can kind of point out those two specific examples.
Mm-hmm.
You see players locking arms now. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you'll see a player kneel, a player stand beside him and, with his hand on his shoulder. Those things are, it's like I said, it's not that it never happened before, it's just happening more
Mm-hmm.
now. And, because it's more exposure, now everyone can see it. And
Right.
the effect may be a little bit different, which is great because, the next generation coming up, they're more open, they're more about diversity. They think about things a little bit more, which is great because people need to grow and evolve.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, let me ask you this when it comes to Kobe Bryant. So, after he passed, of course, that affected a lot of people, not only Laker fans, but everyone. And it was a global thing too. Now, when it comes to exclusively the Black community, why do you think Kobe Bryant was such an important icon, not in just basketball, but also Black representation too?
Kobe Bryant.
Hmm.
Before I answer that, I was on my anniversary trip at the time we find out he had passed, and that kind of ruined the day for us.
Hmm.
We went to pick something up to eat. We were headed back to our hotel. And my daughter sent me the news. Was kind of heartbroken about that. Um, I think anyone that excels in the sport that they play in, speaking of athletes, um, accomplish things that and at a level not many people are able to do. And the inspiration that they give, I think that's why it's such a big deal. Especially for um, blacks and minorities in particular. Kobe's come from Philadelphia, so
Hmm.
he went to Lower Marion High School. This is a guy plenty of people they were in class with,
Hmm.
and they saw him grow up. They watched his growth and development, over 20 years as he became the person that he was. They watched him get married and have kids, and so they could identify with that. And when you see that, it does make you feel like you can conquer the obstacles that are in front of you, whatever it may be. It doesn't have to be sports, but just life in general.
Hmm.
And he began to, it inspired a strike, inspiring people at the time that this happened. So, it hit even harder.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it definitely did. And then even with, because I remember saying after he passed away, and then after John Lewis passed away, and then a bunch of other, either Black actors or Black civil rights leaders or Black athletes were either passing away or something horrible happened to them. I was like, dang, can the Black community get a break? Like during this, so like that's literally what came out of my mouth. I'm like, can we have a break, please? Like, just chill for like 3 seconds,
Yeah,
because with the whole civil rights or the civil unrest going on right now, um, people feel like that it's brand new, but it's not. And I feel like the most powerful thing about sports and the sporting events, like what you said, is since it's being done more now, it's not only contained inside of Black America, and that it's not only our experience anymore. It's right here inside of a sporting event, which
right.
which has a whole stadium filled with different people from different places, different backgrounds, things like that, and it's in your face. Um, and one thing that I wanted to make mention of is just taking the national anthem inside of consideration. So, in my opinion, and I know that I hear this with a lot of people, they're like, well, why do we even have the national anthem? Especially if it's causing so much anguish and, you know, we're so divided over a song,
Right.
right? So, and I really thought about it because the national anthem isn't sung in other countries during sporting events. Like, you don't hear Britain sing their national anthem while they're about
Right.
to play a game of rugby or something like that.
Right.
Um, so after doing some digging, I found out that the national anthem was actually sort of brought around sporting events, and it was a common thing to do in order for propaganda during World War II. And it was to help recruit people, and people made that association with sporting events to the country. And then later on, corporations started using the national anthem for profit.
Right.
And that's why it's a huge deal at sporting events now. That's why we get celebrities even to even douse the fires even more to sing the national anthem.
Right.
Um, so with knowing that, how do you think people would react if we changed the national anthem or removed it?
You're always going to have people indifferent to change. So,
Hmm.
that'll just be another thing that would have people split. Even though it may or may not be that important to play at a game. I don't know if you guys ever been to live games before or anything.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, it doesn't last very long or anything like that. And to me, it's not anything to get riled up about. But if say you have a guy like Carl Lewis, Olympic champion,
Hmm.
he sang the national anthem one time and sang it pretty bad, and they booed him
Hmm.
pretty badly. That's the level that people take it to, but it's just never gotten to where it is now. But I think there will always be a divide, just the way people's perception of what being proud of your country is. Um, here in America, we stand for particular things,
Hmm.
and sometimes those things don't always mean the exact same thing, from person to person.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So that's where the divide comes in at, but I don't know what it is, but people don't respect other people's choices now.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's like you shouldn't do this, but I'm not telling you you can't do what you're doing.
Right.
Right. So, and until we actually start respecting each other, it'll always be that way. But in my opinion.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think the singing is a problem. I think you're right. It's like if you kneel, like that's go that's your choice. I don't see why people should be so mad about that. Like, and it's the same people that are like, oh, my Second Amendment rights, and then they forget that there's also First Amendment freedom of speech. And
Right.
like if you want to
Exactly.
kneel for the flag or for the national anthem, you're allowed to do that. And if you want to make a statement, there should be no issue with that.
Right. Right.
Well, that's supposed to be what the country is all about. Um,
In
but for
theory.
whatever reason, yeah, I don't. Social media is also, it's had its negative effects as well.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
that's probably a part of it too. Now people can't just disagree with, each other. It has to be something wrong with you if you don't think like I think and
Mhm.
agree with what I say. So, it's always an argument and never really a solution.
Right. And well, how do you think sports can help sort of remedy or be a part of that solution? Because the way that I've always seen sports is that even though we have differences and stuff like that and blah blah, take like the Olympics for example. That's
Right.
the only time the whole world gets together
Uh,
You're right.
when it's not about a war or oil or something
Oh
like
boy.
that. But we actually have trying to have friendly competition and healthy competition, and the whole world is watching. So, how do you think something like the Olympics or the NBA or the NFL, things like that, can sort of influence that positive change?
That's something they have to continue to work on. The Olympics, while it shows a lot of solidarity, it's temporary because the Olympics is a short time,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So, people do that for whatever it is, a month, and then everything is back to what it was.
Right.
So it's something, it's efforts you have to continue. The work is never done, from one thing. You have to, sports can bring people together, when those games are happening, but it's really the things that happens afterwards, and just revolving around the sports world. There are a lot of resources, a lot of good people, and a lot of things they actually can do. But that goes back to what we were saying at the beginning. um in Charles Barkley's statement, I'm not a role model, and those type of things. You have to actually think about that statement. Now you can't say that,
Hmm.
because you have a responsibility attached to you, because you have all of these people gathering together for what you do. So,
Hmm.
you can be a Kobe Bryant, and you can inspire people and want to bring people together, or you can be a divisive person.
Hmm. Right. Well, I think another question I would have following up with that responsibility, not only voicing a certain or influencing this large audience of people, but what's your take on when it comes to how much wealth athletes get? Do you think that they have a responsibility to contribute back inside the community? Because people say over and over again, or at least the people that I've listened to, they need to contribute back to the community that they came from and things like that and blah blah blah. What's your take on that?
Uh, let's see how I can change this around.
Hmm.
I don't know if I can tell you what to do with your money. However, it does get to a point where, um, you know, you should think about the avenues that your wealth can open up, right? And I'll give you an example
Hmm.
to make things better. If you look at Magic Johnson played at a time where players were making, 1, 2 million tops,
Hmm.
and he's 5-time champion, loved the game. Had to retire early from HIV, those type of things. But afterwards, his life after the game, he was the very first athlete personally in my life that I've seen, and not that he's the only one, but that I've actually seen, here in Los Angeles, where he actually opened up, all of these businesses in the inner city when other people they weren't willing. They felt that it was too much of a risk, and he took that risk, and it paid off very well. It opened up a lot of jobs. Gave us a lot of tax money as a result. Gave people construction jobs. Those different type of things. Movie theater. You kind of follow Magic, then you would know.
Hmm.
He really made, like, his post career is a lot wealthier. Just from the things that he has done, and how he has helped so many people than when he played basketball.
mhm.
Right.
So I
Right.
think that their wealth, um, can really, when you're given an opportunity to do things that are bigger than you, those are life purpose type things. And for you to just ignore that is very selfish.
Hmm.
So if you're not a part of the solution, you're a part of the problem, right?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Well, I would say, or at least the last question I have for you is, do you think that people will be able to gather for sporting events again? Or do you even think it'll be offered again? Because I heard that it'll, some people were theorizing just to record it all.
No, I think it will
Yeah.
be.
You think so?
Well, they've already started that. It's
Mm-hmm.
just not full stadiums, but they've already started.
Mm-hmm.
The next NBA season starts in December, and they're already talking about, allowing some fans in,
Mm-hmm.
allowing the boxes that they have, the suites.
Mm-hmm.
They're allowing parties to rent out the suites. So, I guess they'll have guidelines. They have to test you. They have to check your temperature. Keep you far enough away from other people, but
Mm-hmm.
still allow some fans in there, but not like it was.
Right.
Not right now.
Yeah. I don't think they're ever going to take live games away. It's a whole different experience actually being there, than
Hmm.
watching it on your TV.
Right.
Even with COVID, they'll find a way. And then hopefully when there's a vaccine, oh, pretty much. Oh, my guess is that it would go back to normal or how it used to be.
Yeah.
I just speaking of a vaccine, I don't understand, the whole quarantine thing. If
Mm-hmm.
everyone would have just listened,
Uh huh.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't we all
Yes.
be okay already? Like,
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't this already be solved?
Yeah,
Right.
Uh,
but we got. I don't want to call any people out specifically, but I know some people personally who don't who still don't think that the virus is a serious, or is a problem, they still think it's just like the flu, and they're still going out and hanging out with friends, and all of that. It's like i I don't know how. I don't know if it's like misinformation or what, or if they're just certain people prone to like being that selfish. But it's a pretty huge problem in the United States here. So,
mhm.
and like selfishness is like a very American ideal. So I don't know that I don't think it's gonna go away with quarantine because there's just so many people who don't care. They just want
Mm-hmm.
to hang out and party during Halloween. Like so many people went partying for Halloween and stuff. You
Wow.
know, so like I think as of right now, unfortunately, I think the only solution is being safe for ourselves, and also um, just hopefully the vaccine comes out sooner than later. But
Absolutely.
if it doesn't, this might be this might be the normal, and you would just have to really watch out for those people that don't, who are being selfish and not being safe for everyone else's sake.
Right.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
It just seems like there's a group of people who just don't like the idea of change, right? To the point that they just won't comply with whatever it might be. If you've known someone who's contracted the virus and they tell you how it affected them, it would make you think a lot differently about just being reckless.
Mm-hmm.
I even have a friend in Italy. We talked when Italy was like the number one place where, the virus was ravaging people. They handled it much different than we did. We overtook them shortly. It didn't take long at all. Just, people just didn't believe it. People didn't listen. I couldn't I have a neighbor who he kept having parties anyway. I stay away from that guy,
Yeah.
because I don't know. Some people they just have to have the company, and I get the isolation part of it. But if it's temporary, it's okay. But we're so like the society is just so driven. They just, you know, push you to go all the time and tell you never to rest. And you have to learn how to balance and sit down and just relax
Yeah.
and calm down and think things through and you know sort things out. But if you're always on the go, you never get a chance to see the big picture.
Yeah. You gotta adapt.
Right. But it's hard to stop when they're like, yeah, you can stop, but if you stop working, we're not going to help you with your rent and your groceries and your, this. Oh, well, we'll give you $1,500. That's about it, though. So it's also takes, yeah, just a little help, a little help. If you want me to stop, then that means that you got to help me stop. So,
Well, welcome
or at
to the
least,
United States.
Exactly,
right.
exactly. See, but that's more of a larger issue with leadership because this entire thing was handled wrong from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
You look at Canada; they gave their citizens money every month. And they never suffered as badly as here in the U.S. among other things like their healthcare and those type of things. So, I think leadership is very important. When it comes to serious issues, and we definitely have had a leadership crisis for quite a while now.
Yeah.
And I think personally that's our biggest issue with a lot of things.
Right. Well, with the elephant in the room, the election happening right now, and
Okay.
how we're literally on the last day, or hopefully the last day, if Nevada, decides to count the last votes
Ah,
tonight.
They like to take their time.
I truly don't understand. I was like, what are they counting? Groundhogs? I don't understand. But um with the whole two candidates, because I know a lot of people that say, well, I don't like either of them.
right.
Because there's a lot of backlash with just Biden's history,
Right.
and what he's done inside the past, and especially during segregation times and things like that.
Hmm.
And also the vice president too,
Right.
and her her policies on incarceration and what she's done in the state of California. Um, what's your take on it when it comes to the two candidates? And do you find it to be a surprise that it's such a close call when it comes to how many votes there are for each side?
I'm not really one to just favor one person over another personally, because I kind of feel like they're the same, if I can say that. Um,
Hmm.
but um, I understand why people, that did vote for Biden and Kamala Harris did. Uh, I do think it was needful, just my personal opinion, because of the way the country has been divided. We need some semblance of normalcy. I don't know what they plan on doing or whatever their policies are, if they get in office and after the fact, right? Because you can say whatever you want to say during the campaign trail, and then you turn around and do whatever you want to do afterwards, right? Sorry, what was the second question you asked?
Do you think that it's a surprise that it's such a close call? Because I've seen a lot of people on social media like, why is this close? He should have won by a landslide, blah, 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 blah. But it's
Oh,
literally neck and neck.
no, I don't. I don't find it surprising at all, because there are still, this may be mean. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but maybe I won't. But there are still a lot of people, over 30, I would say, that still lived in the Jim Crow era, uh, or experienced that type of racism coming up through the civil rights days. They're still alive. So, you know, those people are not going to change. You do see people, younger people, different generation, think things differently. They look at things differently. Um, they have a different opinion, even getting into confrontation. But there are still a lot of people there that they're just kind of stuck in the past. It's sad. It's sad when someone just, they want to tell you, hey, I just want to be equal. And you're like, nah, that's okay. Like,
Right,
I don't even want that for you. That's
right.
definitely a problem. But just unfortunately, there are a lot of people now. They're just going to have to die off with the way that they think, um, for things to change, because those people are in positions, at the moment.
Right. And well, I know that a huge argument is like, well, let's just wait for that generation to die off.
Hmm.
But I know that, well, actually, two arguments. One argument says that, well, that's not necessarily the right way to go about it and solve the issue at hand. It's sort of like sweeping it under the rug again and saying it'll resolve itself. And then the other argument is that racism isn't inherited, it's taught.
True.
So you do see like a lot of young people, 17, 16, 17, who are like really racist,
Right.
and are proud of it because of who their parents are and who their grandparents are and what they learned. Um, what would you say is the first step in order to break that cycle?
I think everyone, when you have, say you have a child, right? And you only have one parent telling that child, don't put your hand on the stove, or whatever the case may be. that child is going to look at that one parent as the bad guy because that one parent is the only one always saying something, right? So everyone kind of has to pitch in. It's not, I don't, when I say, for that, the ideals of that generation to die off, that's not a passive statement in the fact that let's just wait and let them go. You have to always work toward the goal. People always have to work together, to make it happen. Because it's as we can see now, there are more people, I guess, fed up with the way things have been going than how it is the other way. And the momentum that people have now, they have to carry it over because I notice people are too reactive, right? They'll come together for disasters and different things like that, if it's a tragedy, but otherwise I don't really want to bother with you, and we have to stop being like that. People have to care about each other for real, to make it work because that's really the root of it all. You don't have any love for people, you know, and you just have to continue to work together. You just can't stop. People have to stop being so reactive and actually work to get things done together. And I just, for whatever reason, we're just missing that part.
Hmm.
We just are, and it's not right to say it's not affecting me, so I don't care, because some way or another it will affect you sooner or later if you don't say anything.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's an excellent way to put it. Just have to be more cognizant about it. And hopefully, with this little jump scare for the election, it wakes people up and they actually start thinking about the consequences of the decision. Um, but with that said, I know that we're at the end of our recording right now, because Zoom is about to say, "All right, well, you don't have to go
Mhm.
home, but you can, can't stay here." So I did want to thank you for your time.
Yeah. Thank you so much
And
for joining us and for
Mhm.
dealing with all the technical difficulties. That is so bad. I'm so sorry about that.
Thank you guys for having me. I totally appreciate it. I'm actually enjoying myself, so I had a great time.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe we'll have you again in the future sometime, and then we won't
when
have any
Zencaster
technical
wanna,
difficulties.
yeah.
I look
Most
forward to it,
definitely.
man.
Or
I
maybe a
definitely look
post,
forward to it.
yeah, like a post-election, post-COVID, how its sports are now today, how they changed.
Oh,
Ah,
that'd be
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
The differences between, yeah,
Hmm.
can I add something else to that
yeah,
before
yeah.
we
Go
go?
ahead.
I don't know if you have a timer, but
Hmm.
during this entire time with the protests and the riots and different things, there were a lot of companies saying, we need to change things. We need to do better. Um, we need to add more diversity. That's another thing that we need to hold to people's feet,
Hmm.
right? Because again, it was very reactive. In the heat of the moment, a lot of corporations said this, or they just put up a sign, or wherever the case was. But you have to hold people accountable and make them follow through.
Hmm.
And I believe, speaking of video games, I believe Phil Spencer, who's the head of the Xbox division of Microsoft, um,
Hmm.
he just recently did an interview about that. And he talked about representing more minorities in Xbox because there are, if you don't know, the gaming industry has almost no black people, no Latin people for the most part. It's
Wow.
mainly white and Asian. There are little opportunities to get into gaming. If you ask a person, they probably have no idea how they could
Hmm.
even
Hmm.
get started or what it takes. It's not something that's presented to people. So,
Right.
and this is the craziest thing. There was a guy named Jerry Lawson. He's a black man. He was
Hmm.
actually the first person to create a video game console.
Hmm.
It's a long, long time ago, back in the '70s, right? And you would never know that because you
Yeah.
don't really see anyone that looks like Jerry around anywhere.
Hmm.
So Phil Spencer, he knows about this, but he just recently did an interview speaking about being able to hire more black talent, um, you know, get people in more management positions, and because it's like going to college, or at least for me, when I went to college, I thought it was so great because I was able to be around so many other people and it just opened up everything for me. Like
Hmm.
I just felt like the world just opened up. Um, which is why I can understand why I don't think you're necessary because you're not like me. It just makes you a better person altogether. And people have ideas and different things that you don't have. So it's something that he said that he'll continue to pursue, and I think that is one way people can start to see more changes, have people in better management positions, not because of their color or ethnicity or whatever, but I don't think anyone is really out there looking for that type of really they're not out there actively looking for that type of diversity, in places where they don't really know the impact of it, but they're not trying either. So, they spoke a few words and they felt like that was enough, but someone needs to hold them accountable.
Hmm.
Hmm. Are there any online resources that we could send people to if they're interested in doing what you do and getting involved?
You mean as far as gaming is concerned?
Yeah, like I know we have a few friends who like studied video game programming in college and stuff, and I think they'd be very interested in knowing um how they could get involved in this industry uh that seems so elusive.
I think a lot of gaming now, a lot of lucrative gaming is in mobile games.
Mm,
Um, Gaming has a lot of online aspects and microtransactions that actually started from the mobile side. Once Candy Crush was successful, everyone jumped on it. So the video game industry has been growing. It's probably like $1 trillion industry at this point, which is really unheard of because it's growing and growing and growing. But mobile games are very popular right now, and that's definitely an area I would looking to getting into. Not even necessarily trying to focus on the console right in the beginning, because a lot of games do start either just on PC as an indie game or start off as a mobile game and then they work themselves up. Um, you don't really hear the stories from a lot of people, but it happens that way for a lot of folks in the industry, programmers, those type of things, where they become engineers, the guys that really do all the real heavy work. If they don't mind doing it that way.
mhm.
Right.
Did I
Hmm.
answer your question?
Yeah,
That
I'm just
definitely answers
thinking.
my.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to send my friends your way and have them listen to this because I
Right.
think they'll have a lot to get out of it. And because I know a lot of, especially now with COVID, a lot of us are lost because of it's just so challenging to find work right now. So,
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. But the video game industry actually never slowed down. And
mhm,
when you think about it, the one thing that almost everyone has is a cell phone in their hand all the time,
yeah.
right? So you have to find a way to get their attention because this is something that they're using every day all of the time, right? So that's one way you can get to people because I don't for whatever reason people like mobile games. They look really good now. Some of them look as good as maybe your PS4, some of the
Mhm.
PS4 games. Just the way you play and the button touches and the sliding across the screen, if you can get used to doing that, you're gold. But mobile games make a lot of money, a lot. So I'm kind of surprised it doesn't come up more.
Yeah. I think, yeah, that's true. Get those quick dopamine rushes.
Exactly. Exactly.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Our Small Majority.
Oh, wait, it's almost February 19th. This is huge. Y'all, did you know that February 19th is the day Executive Order 9066 was signed in 1942? That's when innocent Japanese Americans were forced into concentration camps in the US, Canada, and Mexico.
That's right. We've got a bonus episode coming up this Friday with Yukio Shimamura, a former prisoner from the Japanese American concentration camps during World War II, where we talk about the current hate crimes happening around the US and how they relate to America's haunting past.
You won't want to miss it.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.